I was asked by Lerner and Lowe, who wrote the wondrous play My Fair Lady, if I would be interested in playing Eliza Doolittle. Then I guess my career took off from there.
For decades, she was the voice of perfection, the symbol of grace, and the face of Hollywood's golden era. But what if we told you that the Julie Andrews you remember isn't the same today? The world still sees her as Mary Poppins, the angelic governess who floated in with an umbrella, or Maria, the free-spirited nun who stole our hearts. But behind the pristine image lies a story of unimaginable pain, loss, and resilience. At 89, Julie Andrews stands as a living legend, but her journey has been anything but easy. A voice that once soared through concert halls was silenced forever. A career that seemed untouchable nearly crumbled. And now, the question on everyone's mind is, what does she look like today? Is she even the same Julie Andrews we grew up idolizing? Her story is one of triumph and tragedy, success and sacrifice. It's a story that proves fame doesn't shield anyone from heartbreak. But before we talk about today, let's go back to where it all began. Julie Andrews was not born into glamour or privilege. She entered the world as Julia Elizabeth Wells on October 1, 1935, in a war-torn England, where bombs shattered homes and sirens filled the night. Life was uncertain and survival was the only priority. But, amidst the chaos, a gift emerged, one that would change the course of her life forever. Music wasn't just present in her childhood, it was the foundation of it. Her mother, Barbara, was a pianist, and her stepfather, Ted Andrews, was a singer. They performed in music halls, bringing entertainment to a country desperate for escape. But it didn't take long for them to realize that the true star of the family wasn't on the stage. It was the little girl with a voice that didn't belong to this world. Julie's voice was unlike anything anyone had ever heard. A soprano so pure, so flawless, it defied her age. It wasn't just good, it was extraordinary. Recognizing this rare gift, her stepfather arranged singing lessons with Madame Lillian Stiles Allen, a renowned opera instructor. The lessons were grueling, but Julie's discipline was unwavering. By the age of 8, she was out-singing trained professionals. While other children played, Julie rehearsed. Her childhood was filled with scales, breathing exercises, and rigorous training. At 10, she was performing at her parents' concerts. At 12, she took the stage in London's West End, stunning audiences with a voice that could reach an astonishing 4-octave range. By her teens, she had already become the financial pillar of her family. The burden was immense, but failure was never an option. Then came a moment that changed everything. In 1954, at just 19, she made her Broadway debut in The Boyfriend. It wasn't the biggest production nor the most glamorous, but Julie stole the show. Her performance as Polly Brown captured the attention of American theatergoers, and suddenly, her name was whispered in circles far beyond England. She wasn't just a promising talent anymore, she was a sensation. Opportunities flooded in. She was cast in the live television production of Cinderella in 1957, bringing the fairy tale to millions of homes across America. It was a defining moment, one that cemented her place as a rising star. Critics hailed her as the next great musical actress, but Julie wasn't easily swayed by praise. She knew this was only the beginning. She had conquered London, she had conquered Broadway, but something even bigger was waiting. Hollywood had bigger plans for this young English star. Julie Andrews was already a rising star, but nothing could have prepared her for what came next. In the early 1960s, Hollywood was searching for something fresh, something magical, and one man had his eye on Julie. Walt Disney himself had watched her perform on Broadway and knew she was perfect for his next big film. He didn't care that she had never acted in a movie before. He was willing to gamble on a complete newcomer. The film? Mary Poppins, 1964. The role? A practically perfect nanny with a voice that could soothe the world. But there was one problem. Julie was pregnant. She thought Disney would move on to someone else. Instead, he told her, "We'll wait." That was how certain he was. And he was right. When Mary Poppins premiered, audiences fell in love instantly. Her charm, wit, and unbelievable vocal control made the film an instant classic. Julie's performance was nothing short of enchanting, and the Academy took notice. That year, she won the Oscar for Best Actress. A fresh-faced English girl had just conquered Hollywood on her first try. But she wasn't done. The very next year, in 1965, came the role that would define her career, Maria von Trapp in The Sound of Music. No one could have predicted just how massive the film would become. It wasn't just a hit, it was a phenomenon. Audiences were mesmerized by the breathtaking scenery, the unforgettable songs, and, most of all, Julie's radiant performance. She wasn't just an actress anymore, she was the world's sweetheart. With back-to-back successes, she became Hollywood's golden girl, but Julie wasn't interested in playing it safe. She didn't want to be typecast as the innocent singing heroine. She wanted to prove she could do more. So, she took on daring new roles. In Hawaii, 1966, she played a missionary's wife, struggling in a foreign land. In Victor/Victoria, 1982, she tackled one of the most challenging performances of her career, playing a woman pretending to be a man, pretending to be a woman. The film was bold, ahead of its time, and showcased Julie's range as both an actress and a comedian. But Hollywood was changing. By the 1970s, musicals were dying. Studios wanted grittier, edgier stories. The bright melodic world of Julie Andrews was suddenly out of fashion. The roles stopped coming. The pressure was mounting. The industry that had once adored her was moving on. And behind all the glamour, behind the perfect smile, Julie was making sacrifices no one could see. She had given Hollywood everything. But soon, Hollywood would take something from her that she could never get back. But behind the smiles and songs, the cracks were beginning to show. Julie Andrews may have lived a life filled with applause and adoration, but behind the curtain, love was a journey of its own, one filled with passion, heartbreak, and deep, lasting devotion. Her first great love was Tony Walton, a talented costume designer. They met when she was just a teenager, and by the time Julie's career was skyrocketing, they were already married. Together, they welcomed a daughter, Emma, into the world. But the life of a rising Hollywood star was not easy on a marriage. Julie was constantly working, moving from one project to the next. Meanwhile, Tony had his creative ambitions. Their love wasn't fading, but the distance between them was growing. By 1967, they faced the painful reality that their relationship wasn't working. They divorced, but their bond never truly broke. Even after going their separate ways, they remained close friends, a rare thing in Hollywood. But Julie wouldn't be alone for long. Then came Blake Edwards, the man who would define her love story. A filmmaker known for his sharp wit and larger-than-life ideas, Blake was unlike anyone she had ever met. Their connection was instant, electric, and undeniable. But it wasn't a perfect fairy tale. They both carried emotional scars, and their careers often pulled them in different directions. Still, they fought for their love. They married in 1969, blending their families and building a life together. Blake had 2 children from his previous marriage, and later Julie and Blake adopted 2 daughters from Vietnam, Amelia and Joanna. Motherhood had always been important to Julie, and despite her demanding career, she made sure her children always knew they came first. Their marriage lasted over 4 decades, a rarity in Hollywood, but behind their love story were deep personal struggles. Blake battled depression and chronic illness, and as much as Julie tried to support him, there were moments of unbearable pain. Still, she stood by him, always believing that love was worth fighting for. Then, in 2010, Julie faced one of the greatest losses of her life. Blake, the man who had been her partner for more than 40 years, passed away. It wasn't just the loss of a husband, it was the loss of her greatest friend, her creative confidant, the person who had seen every version of her and loved her still. She described it as a deep, unfillable void, but true to her nature, she carried on, honoring his memory by continuing the work they had once shared. Julie Andrews faced the highs and lows of love, from romantic beginnings to heartbreaking goodbyes. But her battles were far from over. The most devastating moment of her career was still ahead. But love and loss weren't the only battles Julie had to fight. Julie Andrews was known for many things: her charm, her elegance, her talent. But above all, she was known for her voice. A voice that had mesmerized audiences for decades, that had earned her an Oscar, that had made her a legend. It was more than just a gift, it was her identity. And then, in 1997, it was taken from her. At the time, Julie was still actively performing. Though Hollywood's golden age of musicals had faded, her voice remained untouched. But behind the scenes, she was struggling. Years of performing had taken a toll, and she developed nodules on her vocal cords, a common issue for singers. Doctors assured her it was a routine procedure, nothing to worry about. A simple operation, they said, would restore her voice. But something went wrong. When Julie awoke from surgery, she knew instantly that something was different. Her throat felt raw, unnatural. But it wasn't until she tried to sing that she realized the truth. The sound that came out was unrecognizable. Her once perfect soprano, the voice that had defined her career, was gone. At first, she refused to believe it. She went to specialists, sought second opinions, and tried vocal therapy, but the damage was permanent. The very thing that had made her a star had been ripped away in an instant. The impact was devastating. Julie spiraled into a deep depression, mourning not just her voice but the career that had been built around it. What was she without her gift? Would Hollywood still have a place for her if she couldn't sing? Would audiences still love her? But she wasn't just going to sit back and accept it. She fought back. In 1999, she filed a lawsuit against the hospital, claiming medical malpractice. The legal battle was grueling, but in the end, she won a settlement. Yet no amount of money could ever replace what she had lost. For a while, it seemed as though Hollywood didn't know what to do with her anymore. Without her voice, she was no longer the Julie Andrews the world had known. But Julie wasn't about to let that define her. If she couldn't sing, she would reinvent herself. She turned to writing, co-authoring a series of children's books that became bestsellers. She embraced voice work, lending her narration to major films and TV projects, including the hit series Bridgerton. She directed, produced, and found new ways to tell stories without ever singing a note. Julie Andrews had lost the very thing that made her famous, but she refused to let it be the end of her story. She wasn't done yet. But even as she reinvented herself, the world wasn't done speculating. Julie Andrews has always been admired for her elegance and grace, but even icons aren't spared from speculation and scrutiny. As she aged, the world couldn't resist asking the inevitable question: had she undergone plastic surgery? Hollywood has always been brutal to women, especially those who dare to grow older in the public eye. While male actors were praised for their distinguished aging, women were judged for every wrinkle. Julie, known for her natural beauty, faced constant whispers about whether she had turned to cosmetic procedures. The media dissected her face, comparing her past and present photos and analyzing every line and curve. But Julie, as always, handled it with class. She never publicly addressed the rumors in detail and never fed into the speculation. Her silence spoke louder than any explanation could. She never felt the need to defend her appearance. Her career had never been built on vanity, and she refused to let Hollywood's impossible standards define her. Yet, the controversy wasn't unfamiliar to her. In 1982, she took on one of the most daring roles of her career in Victor/Victoria. Playing a woman who disguises herself as a man performing as a woman was a bold move, especially at a time when gender norms were far more rigid. The film was ahead of its time, forcing audiences to question identity and perception. Some critics praised it for its brilliance, while others called it too provocative. But Julie was never one to shy away from a challenge. She knew the film was important, that it was pushing boundaries, and she delivered a performance that was both hilarious and powerful. The film was a success, but it proved one thing: Julie Andrews wasn't just a musical darling, she was a risk-taker, unafraid to step outside the roles the world had assigned her. Throughout the years, the media continued to analyze her life, her personal choices, her aging, and her career shifts. But Julie never played into the noise. She never engaged in public feuds and never let rumors control her narrative. She remained graceful, composed, and entirely in control of her own story. And even as the world talked about her, questioned her, and speculated about her choices, she remained focused on what truly mattered. Because Julie Andrews wasn't finished yet. But there was still more to come, and Julie Andrews wasn't finished yet. At 89, most Hollywood legends would have faded into the past, content to live off their legacy. But Julie Andrews is not like most legends. She has never been one to sit still, and even today she remains as active and influential as ever. Her voice may no longer grace the world through song, but it hasn't stopped her from telling stories in a new way. Over the years, she has embraced writing and co-authoring several best-selling children's books with her daughter, Emma Walton Hamilton. Together, they've created stories that inspire young minds, proving that creativity doesn't fade with time, it simply evolves. And for those who feared they would never hear her voice again, she found a way to surprise them. In 2020, Julie took on a role that introduced her to an entirely new generation as the narrator of Netflix's hit series Bridgerton. With her unmistakable voice guiding the story, she became an integral part of the show's identity, proving that even without singing, she could still captivate audiences. Then, there's the ongoing question that fans keep asking: will she return for The Princess Diaries 3? The films in which she played the regal and wise Queen Clarice Rinaldi became modern classics. The demand for a third installment has never faded, and speculation about her involvement continues to swirl. While she has remained non-committal, the idea of seeing Julie Andrews back on screen in such a beloved role is something that excites fans worldwide. Despite all of this, the curiosity about her personal life has not slowed down. Fans wonder what she looks like today and how time has changed the woman who once seemed untouched by age. While she has stepped away from the constant limelight, her rare public appearances still draw admiration. She carries herself with the same elegance and poise that made her a star decades ago. Julie Andrews has defied expectations time and time again. Where others may have let tragedy define them, she reinvented herself. Where others may have retired, she found new ways to stay relevant. Even at 89, she remains a force in the industry, a name that still commands respect and admiration. But when all is said and done, what will be Julie Andrews' legacy? Few stars shine as brightly or for as long as Julie Andrews. Her legacy isn't just written in history, it's woven into the very fabric of film, theatre, and music. Decades after her first performance, new generations continue to fall in love with her work. Parents introduce their children to Mary Poppins and The Sound of Music, and the magic is just as powerful as it was when those films first graced the screen. Her voice may have been silenced, but her impact has never faded. She has left her mark not just in Hollywood, but on Broadway, in literature, and countless hearts around the world. She gave the world some of the most unforgettable performances of all time, shaping what it means to be a leading lady. From the governess who captured our hearts to the regal queen who guided a young princess, her characters live on, teaching new audiences about love, kindness, and resilience. But her contributions go far beyond the screen. Julie Andrews has dedicated herself to philanthropy, using her influence to support arts education, children's literacy, and humanitarian causes. She has worked tirelessly to ensure that young artists have opportunities to pursue their dreams, just as she once did. She has championed the arts in a world that sometimes forgets their importance, proving that storytelling, whether through music, books, or film, is a gift that should never be lost. And despite the changes in Hollywood, she has remained relevant. Younger audiences know her not just as Maria or Mary Poppins, but as the voice of Bridgerton, the author of cherished children's books, and the woman whose presence still commands respect and admiration. In an industry obsessed with the new, Julie Andrews remains timeless. Her story is not just one of success, it is one of resilience. She faced heartbreak, loss, and an unimaginable career-ending tragedy, yet she never allowed any of it to define her. She reinvented herself again and again, proving that true talent is never limited to one form. Julie Andrews is not just a relic of Hollywood's past. She is a force that continues to inspire, a legend whose influence will never fade. Long after the lights have dimmed, long after the final note has been sung, her legacy will live on. And so, we reach the final curtain. Julie Andrews is more than a Hollywood star. She is a symbol of grace, resilience, and reinvention. Her journey, spanning decades, is not just a story of fame, but of a woman who faced the highest triumphs and the deepest heartbreaks, and still stood tall. From a war-torn childhood to the dazzling lights of Broadway and Hollywood, she became a global icon. Her voice once soared through concert halls and film screens, defining an era of musical storytelling. And when that voice was taken from her, she refused to be silenced. She adapted, evolved, and proved that true talent is never confined to one stage. She has lived through love and loss, through adoration and scrutiny, through triumph and tragedy. Yet through it all, she has remained a beacon of dignity, kindness, and artistic brilliance. Her performances continue to inspire, her books continue to touch young minds, and her presence in modern media ensures that new generations will forever know her name. Julie Andrews is not just a part of Hollywood's past, she is timeless. She has taught the world that reinvention is possible, that strength is found in perseverance, and that true greatness is never fleeting. Her legacy is not just in the films she made or the songs she sang, it is in the way she carried herself through life, with resilience, class, and an unshakable spirit. The curtain may fall, the applause may fade, but Julie Andrews' impact will never be forgotten. Julie Andrews isn't just a star of the past, she's an icon of all time.